Today is day number 12 of our virtual hatching class, and I am getting ready to candle our eggs. We candle the eggs to determine what's happening inside of the incubated egg and to see if we have any embryos actively growing inside of our eggs. It's good to wait until day 12 or 13 because by now we should be able to see very well what's happening inside of the egg. So what is candling? Candling refers to shining a light on an egg to see if anything is growing in it. Back when farmers didn't have electricity, they could hold a candle very carefully up to the egg to see if they had anything growing in them. Now, with technology, we no longer need to use a candle. There's several things we could use for candling, such as a flashlight, which if I was in the classroom with y'all, that's the way we would be doing it so that y'all could see for yourselves what was happening inside of the egg. But the incubator that we have here actually has a candler built into it. That's what this is right here. I'll press this button and it will shine a light, and that way we can see what's going on inside of the egg. So that's what I'll be using today to candle, is this built-in candler. How we will candle is I will make sure that the room is dark, so I'll turn off the lights. I will, of course, put my gloves on because, as we said, the eggs have a lot of little bitty pores in them. And we talked about this before. Anytime I want to handle the eggs, I need to be wearing gloves so that I don't transfer any bacteria into an egg that has an embryo growing in it, and if there is any bacteria on the egg, it isn't transferred to me. If some of these eggs are do not have a viable embryo growing in them, if the embryo has died, I already took out the ones that were not fertilized. We talked about that. So they've been sitting in this 100-degree temperatures, and so that's kind of ripe for bacteria to grow. And so if there is an egg that has some bacteria, I don't want it to transfer to me. So we're going to handle them with gloves. I'm going to remove each egg one at a time, and I'm going to place it with the small end on top of, I'm going to place the egg on there with the small end on the light, and then we'll kind of move the egg around. I may have to flip it, but we'll move the egg around so we can see what's going on inside of it. So I'll do this one at a time. And as we do it, I'll kind of show you some of the good eggs, and I'll show you some of the bad eggs and what we look for in those eggs that tell us whether they're good or they're bad. So here in just a little bit, I will turn the lights off and I'll get started with the candling, and then I'll share those with you. Okay, this one is one that I think is a winner. It's very hard to see in this video, but down at the bottom of the egg, you can see some active blood vessels. And that is a sign of a viable embryo growing, if there are blood vessels that are moving through the egg. It's very hard to tell in this video, but this is one that I'm going to say is a winner. And we'll talk a little bit more about winners in some other videos. Okay, this is another egg that I believe is a winner, what we call a winner, which means that it has an active, growing, viable embryo in it. Again, it's kind of hard to see in this video, but down at the bottom you can see some active blood vessels, and what that means is if those blood vessels are throughout the egg, that means there's a heart pumping, that it is taking blood to the heart. This shadow up at the top of it is going to be where your where your embryo is growing. And then this down here at the bottom is the space that it still has to grow. So this is another one that I believe is a winner. Just another one that's kind of hard to see. All right, this is my silky egg, and this is a good egg, a winner. You can see the blood vessels. See them down here on this bottom half? I'm gonna try to move it a little bit. I don't want the light to, but you can see, maybe if I come down a little bit. There are active blood vessels all throughout there. And if you look real closely, you can even see the shadow up here at the top, right there, will kind of move, which is the embryo moving in the egg. So this is a winner. All right, here we have another winner. It's another one that's hard to see, but you can sort of see the shadow moving, which is the embryo that's moving in the egg. See that? It does have some active blood vessels there on the bottom part. They're kind of hard to see in this video, but you can, I really hope, see that movement of the embryo. So this is a winner. Still a lot of space for them to grow, but the dark shadow at the top that's moving is the solid of the baby chick of the embryo, and then the bottom is the liquid, which is the room that the baby still has to grow, the embryo still has to grow. So this one is a winner. All right, this is another one of our smaller eggs that is a winner. You can kind of see the blood vessels if you look real carefully there at the bottom of the egg. These are smaller eggs, much smaller eggs than the other ones. I'll put it next to one of our regular size eggs. These are what we call Sebrights. It's another breed of chicken that stays very small. So they will fill up this egg much faster than our bigger eggs because they don't have as much of an egg to grow in. So this one is a winner though. And I had another one right before this that I didn't video. It was very dark, very hard to see, but I'm assuming because it's so solid looking that it is a good winner as well. This is another one of our Sebright eggs, and it looks like it's got some viable or some active blood vessels in it. So I'm going to assume that this is another winner. I don't see him moving so much, but you can kind of see the blood vessels. So it looks like this one's a good one as well. All right, this is my last Sebright egg. I have 5 Sebright eggs. I didn't film the last one, but all 5 of them look like they are winners, that they have something going on inside them, active blood vessels, so they have a viable baby chick, an embryo growing inside these eggs. So all 5 Sebrights, the smaller eggs, look like they are winners. Can you see that embryo moving? This is a viable winning egg. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's moving. So this is a winner. There is a viable baby chick moving in that, a viable embryo. See all the blood vessels as well? Okay, this is an example of an egg that started to grow. The embryo started to develop, but then for some reason it stopped developing. You can see kind of around there what looks like a blood ring. And that means that the blood vessels have collapsed. And so they're no longer pumping blood to a heart. And you can see that little spot kind of in the middle. That was the embryo that was starting to develop. So we call this a quitter, which means it started to grow. It was a fertilized egg. But then for some reason, it stopped growing. So it is no longer a viable embryo. And this is one that we will remove from the incubator. So we call these a quitter. All right, this is another egg that I would classify as a quitter. It looks like it started to form an embryo, which is this dark spot right here. But I don't see any active blood vessels. And I would think at this stage in the incubation, if it was a growing embryo, not only would I see the active blood vessels, but it would also be a larger dark spot. It would be taking up more of the inside of the egg. So remember when we talked about solids and liquids in the experiment? The dark spot is the solid, the forming embryo. And then all of this that's glowing is the liquid. And so at this point, I would think that we would have more solid than we were having. So this is a quitter. Okay, here is another quitter. You can see it has the dark spot. So something started to develop, but it did not continue. So no active blood vessels, just the dark spot where an embryo started to develop and then stopped. Now, if you see several quitters that maybe are the same type of egg, that look like maybe they stopped about the same time, or even if you had several eggs that all stopped at the same time, look like they stopped growing about the same time, then you might look at your journal and see, did we have a humidity problem around that day? Did we lose power? Did the temperature fall too much? I'm not saying any of that happened with us, but those are something to look at when if you had several eggs that all looked like they stopped developing on the same day. So I think this might be because this is the same type of breed, like the color of the egg is similar to some of the other ones, so it might just be a problem with that chicken or the rooster, or for whatever reason they're just not developing correctly. This is another quitter, and as I said, if you notice, this is kind of the same egg as the last one, the same breed, so that may be an issue with that chicken that's laying this egg, that they may not be able to survive and to grow into viable chicks, viable embryos. But you can see the dark spot, so it did start, but it didn't continue. Okay, this is another example of a quitter. You can see the dark up here where the embryo started to develop, but then for some reason it stopped. And that's why you see the rest is kind of just glowing. You don't see any active blood vessels going on. So this is another one that is considered a quitter. We don't always know why that happens. Why some of them quit and some of them succeed. But we do know this one was a fertilized egg. It did start to develop and then it stopped. This egg here is an example of a yolker. And what that means is it's an egg that was never fertilized. As you can see, it's just glowing bright yellow orange, just kind of straight through. And that means that this egg was never fertilized, which means there was no chance of a baby chick ever growing in this egg. There was So I went ahead and we'll remove that egg from the incubator. This is another example of a yolker. And as you can see, it's just glowing a bright yellow. So this is another one that was not fertilized. So there was never a chance of a baby chick growing inside this egg. So we will remove that one from the incubator as well. I'm kind of bummed about this one. This is another example of a yolker, meaning it was never fertilized. This was one that we were thinking would be a black silky. And like I said, it doesn't look like this one was even a fertilized egg, which means that there was never a baby chick growing in it, never had a chance of a baby chick growing in it. So hoping I was going to get a black silky, which is just a breed of chicken out of this hatch, but no such luck. However, there is a white silky inside one of these eggs that does look like it is growing. So pretty excited that we may at least get one silky out of this incubation, so out of this hatch. So looks like I had 3 that were yolkers in this set that I can tell for sure. Some of the darker eggs, it's really hard to tell, so not sure about those, but these are 3 that I do know for sure were yolkers. We have 3 really dark brown eggs, and these are going to be very hard to see through. Very hard to distinguish if something is happening inside this egg or not. If you look really closely, I do believe that it was fertilized. I believe there possibly is something growing in it because it's very dense. I mean, the light does go through it kind of at the bottom, but it's not just shining through everywhere, which means I don't believe it was a yolker. So there's 3 that I'm going to be very unsure about. We're going to leave them all in there. We're going to assume they're all winners and see what happens on hatch day. A quick recap with y'all of the candling. So a few days ago, I candled all the eggs, and when we did that, I found that I had 3 yolkers. And yolkers are eggs that were never fertilized, so there was never a chance of a baby chick growing inside them. Tonight, when I candled the remaining 19 eggs, I had 5 that I am calling quitters. And what a quitter is an egg that started to grow, but then for some reason, it stopped. So it was a fertilized egg, an embryo started to develop, and then at some point, between putting them in the incubator and the candling, they stopped growing. We're not always sure why that happens. It could have to do with the breed of the chicken not laying a good egg. It could have to do with something with the incubator. We're just not always sure. Then we have 14 eggs still in our incubator. The 5 in the middle are our sea brights, and you can see how much smaller they are. And all of those are viable, have a baby chick growing in them. These 3 dark ones, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel pretty good about them having a baby chick growing, an embryo. They're just very hard to see through with that dark shell. The other ones, there are 2 that I'm not 100% sure are quitters, so I'm leaving them in here. The other 4, I am 100% sure have something growing in them, and those are what we call winners. So the 14 that are still in here, we're pretty sure are all winners. There's 2 that I'm not sure about. So hopefully all of these eggs will hatch on day 21. We're not positive. Something could still happen, but we're going to hope for the best.